Here we go. All righty. Cool. So I want to wait for people to get joining in here. Gonna give it just a moment. All right. I see we got some people hopping on here. Go ahead and drop your first name down below just so I know who we got. But I know for most of you watching this, you probably understand this is the last live stream ever that I'm going to be doing on a consistent weekly basis. So wanted to make some stuff pretty fun today and kind of go over some objections. So I sent out a little form. If you haven't filled it out yet, go ahead and fill it out. You can come on. I'll throw you an objection that maybe you're struggling with, or maybe you just want to show off your skills, whichever one floats your boat, you know. But what we'll do is we'll go over that objection, and then potentially Melissa says hi. Hey Melissa, what's up? But we'll go over any potential hidden gaps that are currently in your sales process, or if you're one of those guys that's just knocking it out of the park, showing off, then we'll be able to kind of show with some other people what it might look like for an objection that they might be struggling with. So guys, today's live is going to only be 30 minutes. I've got a really tight schedule. And we had some delays in getting started today, but what we are going to do is we're going to have a ton of fun and we're going to go through this thing and knock it out of the park. So let's see if we can't figure out who our first friend is today that we're going to be giving a ring. So let's see. I see Akeem on here. I'm going to try giving you a ring, Akeem. Okay, 407. All right, we're going to try. LOL, I got 10 rejections tonight. Dang, Melissa, but you're working, though. Means you're going to get a sale soon. Akeem, what's up? It's Julian. How are you, man?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, man, I saw you had filled out the form to go over an objection today on the live. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did.
Cool, man. Well, are you showing off today, or is this more of a learning experience for you?
More of a learning experience.
Okay. Cool deal. Yeah, I was just talking to live. I said some people are going to be here to learn. Some people are probably going to be here to show off. But either way, we're here to have some fun. So, what objection are you currently struggling with? And comment down below if you can hear him. I said put it closer to the mic. Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear this. But what objection are you currently struggling with?
Currently, it's we already have life insurance, or my family already has life insurance.
Okay. So if you're cool with it, what I want to do is I'm going to throw you that objection, see how you handle it. And then if you're handling it perfectly, great. And then if not, we can look at repositioning it. Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, let's say we're mid conversation. You've already built rapport, ton of value. I obviously like, is this mid sale or is this like beginning of the appointment?
I would say beginning of the appointment or after I've already created a quote.
Okay, cool. So let's say that you've already created a quote just to make it a little bit easier, and then we can kind of tackle it from there, and then we can do the other intro one as well. So yeah, Akeem, I think that quote looks really cool, and I think you're a really nice guy, but we already have coverage.
Okay, so are you? I work with the state regulation Department of Life Insurance. What I'm trying to do is just try to make sure you're getting the most that you possibly can get for the less out of your pocket, or the least out of your pocket, I would say.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I mean, I think we're pretty happy with what we have currently. And so I'll kind of cut it there because, we don't want to get running down a rabbit hole here. But what kind of response do you typically get when you hear that? Like, we're good, I'm guessing, is what you're hearing. Like, oh, we're good.
Yeah. Or we've gotten it through my husband's job or anything that actually brings it a lot lower. Like they come with an outrageously low number that I can't beat.
Okay. So one thing, guys, and this is a huge objection that most people get. So Akeem, thank you so much for hopping on here. I know there's a lot of people that this is like one of the most common objections that I hear people struggling with is I already have insurance objection. And so are you selling term, Akeem? Is that right?
Yeah, term.
Yeah, and so when you're selling term, guys, this objection is actually one of the hardest ones to overcome if you're not aware of how their policies might work, or what exactly you're getting into when you're coming into the phone call. And so the one drill that's always like really knocked this one out of the park for me is just seeking to understand. So did you notice, Akeem, whenever you presented the objection overcome, you came to me with like, I want to get you the best thing that you can get because I work with the state.
Yeah.
So whenever we're using I statements and want statements, desires that are our own, we're gonna end up falling apart on the phone because they're concerned that this conversation is no longer about them and it's turning to be more about you, which then leads them to believe that you're just some sleazy salesman and puts us in the doghouse to where they're going to say things like, "Oh, I'm good," et cetera, et cetera. Now, the way that you can reposition this is simply by seeking to understand. And so, if you want to throw me that objection real quick, I'll kind of show you how we could make that fit a little bit better and usually into conversation.
All right. Well, we already have life insurance through my wife's employer.
Okay. Yeah, man. Most of the people I talk to already do. When you say that you already have life insurance, what does that look like?
About the face value, I think, was about 500,000, and it's about $87 a month for the entire family.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys got that in place. It's important to have some insurance all put together for yourself. Did they tell you when that was going to expire, or have they not gone over that with you yet?
No, they haven't.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so that's the reason why I'm giving you a ring today is because most of the people I talk to are in the same exact position you are. They have upwards of $500,000 in coverage covering the family, but what they don't understand is how long that coverage actually lasts. Have you ever had a conversation with an employer about what that might look like?
No, I haven't.
Wow, really?
Yeah, when I first signed up for the benefits, because it came with the health insurance and everything, that's when they actually signed up for it. But they haven't really went over anything for the life, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah, typically whenever you're working with an employer, they'll go over what the benefits look like for the health insurance because it's more widely approached, and they might breeze over the life insurance just a bit, or maybe there wasn't even any questions to ask because it seems super simple. But whenever you're getting insurance through an employer, it only lasts for the term that you're employed there. And so while the coverage that you may have currently is upwards of it might be 500, upwards of 500,000. The thing is that you got to look at the terms of the insurance because there's two types. There's two different types of things that you got to look at. It's not just price, but it's also the terms. And so what we have to ask ourselves is this insurance going to last for 1 year, 10 years, for the duration of employment, lifetime? And so when we can kind of really get down into the nitty gritty details of the insurance, this is where most people will find out that they actually don't have something that they could achieve through a private organization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And that's kind of why I have a job here, Akeem, is because what I do is I come out and I make sure that you're in the best position possible as a citizen of, let's say, Tennessee. And the biggest thing is just making sure that you don't have one of those policies that's going to expire. Or if you were to end up, maybe doing a relocation or potentially even a job switch or maybe moving career fields, that you don't get put in a position to where that 500,000 disappears and you're at liability for having no coverage that would be put in place to cover the cost of your mortgage in the event of a tragedy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense.
And so we can, the biggest difference here is that we're simply seeking to understand and then redirecting the understanding of the client, because what most people don't understand is that coverage expires. Not because they don't they can't grasp the concept, but it's simply because they've never understood that outcome because it's never even been in question. And so one thing that Alex Hormozy says all the time is we only question the beliefs that come to mind, but we never question the beliefs that we never think to question. And so it's kind of a weird conundrum in explaining that process. But for example, if I'm working somewhere, I'm not going to think about my health insurance expiring because I'm working there and I'm healthy, right?
Right.
And so then we
Right.
have to present that potential outcome to the client so that we can then overcome the objection by revealing to them that there's information that they don't quite understand or that they don't currently have. And so when we can reveal that there's ignorance in the situation, we can then shed light on the subject to move ourselves further down the line of sales, because the truth is that they need insurance. And it's a disservice for us to not ask this question, because if we don't, and then they don't get the insurance and they make a career switch and they drop it even for a week and they get hit by a truck, it's our fault for not having done that. Does that make sense?
Right.
But does that feel helpful? I see Melissa in the comments saying that's helpful.
Yeah, it is very helpful. Thank you.
Of course, let's tackle it a little bit earlier in the conversation at the beginning, because I know this is one objection that comes up early in the call and most people are crumbling. So I'm assuming that whenever I'm like, if you call me and I'm like, oh, I already have coverage, it's probably the same. Mm-hmm. You're probably assuming the same thing. Is that correct?
Well, so far I've been trying to probe a little bit. Whenever they do get, like I do get it within the first 10 seconds of speaking with them. Mm-hmm. I usually ask, okay, who did you actually go with? And the type of the term that you get. I also ask, how much was the premium? And then I try to actually give them like some hopes of finding something a little lower.
And do they hang up usually whenever you're like, asking?
Yeah.
I knew it every time.
Usually, yeah.
So, mm-hmm. And the reason why is because whenever you're asking them like, oh, and who did you go with? It's not a them question. It's a you question. Right. And so we have to ask questions that can offer them a perception of future received value, or otherwise, if we're taking from the prospect constantly, this could be something as simple as switching the way that you ask for the social. So like, I know a lot of people ask for social and they say, hey, let me get your social so that we can do a background check on your medical records. That's 2 takes, right? Let me get your social so that we can do a background check, right? So I'm taking from them twice. And so we have to always operate in a deficit here of value, where we constantly give more than we're taking to create that transaction. And so whenever you're on the phone with someone early on and they tell you, hey, no, I already have coverage, and then you hit them with the, oh, okay, and who'd you end up going with? While it's not a bad question, it's just positioned wrong, and it's in the wrong part of the sales process. And so, for example, what is the one thing that they want in that moment whenever you're calling them?
9 times out of 10 is to find a better deal if they already have one already.
Well, that's actually so this is the misconception. They don't even care about getting a better deal. They just want to get off the phone at this point because they're afraid you're going to sell them something. And so we have to attack that option first. And so if you get called, let's say I called you and I'm selling like, I don't know, freaking whatever, like Wi-Fi. And I'm like, hey man, did you get that AT&T router? Like, everyone hates AT&T telemarketers because they're so aggressive. And so then if I've already got, oh man, I've got Spectrum, and okay, well, who'd you end up going with, or how much are you paying? Like, click. And so we have to figure out what an issue is that could be a potential object for them. And so instead of asking them like, who'd you end up going with, let's make them an offer first. And Akeem, let me go ahead and just so I can take you off the list here, so you don't get any more calls from funny looking dudes like me. Who'd you end up going with? I can make a note and go ahead and get you taken off that list. They're going to tell you who they ended up going with because they want to get off the list. And once we've made that transaction, now we can dissect the situation that's available and say, oh, okay, gotcha. They might say Globe Life or whoever or whatever. And so this will require industry knowledge. But then whatever company that they end up saying that they went with, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, gotcha. And I'm guessing you probably, have whatever you most commonly hear, throw it out there. I'm guessing you probably have about 500,000 in coverage, and it's going to cost you what? Let me guess, $80 a month, right? And they're going to be like, oh, how did you know that? Right. And so this does require you to have some knowledge in a lot of like knowledge in your niche and experience with talking to these people. But once we can make them make that ask, they're either going to confirm one, that it is the coverage that and I'm going to get you in a second, Darren. I see your question. They're going to either confirm that it is what we think it is, and then we can dissect the policy from there. So, okay, is that? And I'm guessing you ended up going with Globe Life for the the 500,000 in coverage, whatever, or I'm guessing you got 500,000 in coverage for your work, and it's probably about $80 a month. Am I right in saying that? They're either going to say no, or they're going to tell you typically how much coverage they have and what they're paying for it. And so then at that point, we can just attack terms again and be like, oh, okay, gotcha. Now, Akeem, did they tell you when that was going to expire? I'm assuming you were already aware of that, right? And now I'm implying that there's a piece of knowledge that they're then missing because they're not going to be able to explain to me how their policy works because nobody cares about life insurance. And so from there, I have my foot in the door, hypothetically speaking, not actually, but I have my foot in the door to be able to then dissect the conversation and move forward by overcoming the objection because I have more information that I've gathered to be able to attack the problem instead of the person. Because for as long as we're trying to get them to buy something from us instead of solving a problem that they may or may not have, we are going to be salespeople and treated as an unwelcome pest instead of a welcome guest. Does that make sense?
Right. That is true.
I see Darren Sweeney has a question for me and Mr. Akeem here. He says, what if the prospect says, okay, let me check with my employer and find out when my work coverage ends? What would you say to that, Akeem?
I would say I could probably look that up for you. It's like, or a similar quote, give you an idea.
Yeah, again, I think what it comes down to there is now we're putting ourselves as the obstacle in between whether or not they can do something. And so we have to find the solution for them and then offer that information. So I'm going to say, in this situation, Darren, I'm just going to seek to understand. Right. And so I might say, oh, okay, gotcha. I know how most of the big employers work. Where are you at? And I can find out either one, where they work, if they get uncomfortable, and then, or, some people are like weird about that. You don't have to position it that way. But if you guys feel comfortable on the phone, like me and Akeem are vibing on the phone right now. He's not uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable. I would ask him that. But if it's a little more standoffish, then I might say something along the lines of, oh, okay, gotcha. And, most of the employer policies are the same. They should have given you a copy. Have they done that already? And so now if they haven't, I can attack the issue at hand, which is now, oh, you don't have that information on hand. I mean, they're supposed to give that to you. No, I mean, they didn't give that to me. Okay, so let me get this straight. So currently you have life insurance. Yes? Yes. Okay, got you. And so they didn't go over what that looks like with you? No. Okay. And they probably did, by the way, because they're required to legally. But then I'm going to say, oh, okay, gotcha. And when you say they didn't go over that with you, they also didn't give you a copy of your policy, which, again, they probably did, but the person doesn't remember. And so they're going to say, well, no, I don't remember having a policy given to me. I'm going to be like, okay. And Akeem, so I'm a little confused here because I'm giving you a call and you're telling me that you have life insurance through work, yet you have no record of it, and you have no prior knowledge of something that they are legally required to go over with you. What would that look like if something were to happen? What would that look like for, I see you listed your beneficiary here as Darren Sweeney. What would that look like for him? And so I'm going to then put it back on, okay, now we have to attack the emotional aspect of things, which is how can we figure out just how we're going to solve the issue, which is their family not being covered. And it always ties back to family. And so the sooner I can get back there, the better a position I'm going to be in. But we have to stop just looking at price. We have to attack terms, because there's two sides of business, and there's terms and price, and they can either have the price or the terms, but they can't have both. Right. And so my goal in business is always to go for the terms, because I know everybody else is talking about price. And therefore, I have an unfair advantage to everyone that I'm competing with when I'm selling insurance, because while everybody else is calling about price, I'm over here talking about whether or not it's going to expire, or what the living benefits look like, or whether or not their beneficiary is updated on the policy. Because people, that's the thing, is you can get into policies like crazy, doing a policy review over the phone and be like, oh, okay, gotcha. And I just wanted to make sure here, Akeem, you already have I see you listed, I always ask for beneficiary on the form. So I'm going to say, you listed your wife here as your beneficiary. I'm assuming that you went ahead and updated her as the designated beneficiary to ensure she would get paid out in the event that something happened. And they're going to be like, well, yes. And so you listed you said you guys have kids, and you want to make sure they're good too. So you listed your daughter as a contingent beneficiary, so you guys have a backup plan in the event that there's like a double whammy, maybe a car accident or something crazy. And I leave that question hanging there, and they're going to be like, holy shit, I don't even know. And so now that the doubt is sowed, I can then offer them information and value in the form of Q&A, where it's like, well, how would I do that? It's like, well, it's funny you ask, because I'm a freaking insurance professional. So like, what's up? You know what I mean? And that's how you're going to get your foot in there, is by asking those probing questions to ensure that the desired outcome is actually possible. Let's see. We got a Facebook user that says, I love when they say they are covered through work. Make them think what they actually have or don't. Yeah. And most people oftentimes don't even know what they have. But Akeem, while I got you on the phone, I want to hear, do you have any other objections that you want to like knock out of the park? Maybe banking or social. Anything else?
No, that was the main thing I would say that came across so far.
Okay.
And that it's been smooth from there.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, dude, I hope that gets you to 6 figures this year. That one right there will get you into a lot more conversation. So if you use it wisely and take advantage of it, you should be able to knock some stuff out of the park. So I hope I was able to help today.
Definitely was. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, cool. Have a good one. Thanks for coming on. Everybody, if you want to, I don't know if you want to throw an Akeem comment down below to say thank you for him coming on here and giving us a chance to all learn together. But thanks again, Akeem. I appreciate your time. And I'm gonna probably see if we can call one more person before I have to get off here. But thanks again, brother, and we'll talk soon. Peace. Rotye says this training is crazy. How would I handle? We don't need this. So thank you, Akeem. Akeem. All right, let's get some Akeem love in here real quick before I answer this next objection. Akeem. Thank you, Akeem. Yeah, thanks again, Akeem. But let's talk about how we should handle. We don't need this. So Lenny, I don't know, and this is private, so you can drop your phone number, and I can actually call you, and we can run through it real quick. If you want to drop your phone number, I can just give you a ring, and we can kind of go over it. Facebook user is Jacob. Yeah, Jules Def nailed it. Good stuff, brother. I don't know who's calling me Jules, but I'm interested in knowing who that is. But yeah, Lenny, if you drop your phone number, I'll call you so I can get some context around when this objection's coming up, and then we can dissect a plan together to how we can overcome that. But I definitely think that we can knock that one out. It's not private. Oh, interesting. All right, well, it's not private, but you can put your phone number in anyways, and nobody else is going to call you more than likely. If they did, that'd be kind of weird. But if you want to drop that down below, I can give you a ring right here real quick. But I will tell you the underlying objection that will pop up whenever they say we don't need this, whether it's in the beginning of the conversation, middle of the conversation, or end of the conversation. And so the beginning of the conversation is going to be, if they're thinking that they don't need it, is simply because they don't understand what it is that they're getting. And therefore, we then have to ask questions that are going to require them to think about it more, right? And so if I call someone in the beginning of the conversation, they're like, oh, we don't need this stuff. I just filled that out. Oh, okay, gotcha. So you already have something in place then. And from there, I'm able to either find out whether they do or don't. And so if they say, no, we don't, I'm just going to say, gotcha. Well, I mean, everybody needs this stuff. So when you say you don't have anything in place currently, what does that look like? I see you listed your beneficiary here as blank. Are they going to be responsible for paying that, blank bill? Whether if it's mortgage protection, I would lean more towards talking about the house. If it's final expense, I'm going to lean more towards talking about the funeral bill. If it is a situation where it's in the middle of the call, I'm going to then approach it with a more value-based piece of information. And I'm going to say, okay, gotcha. So when you say that you don't need this, what exactly do you mean by that? And they're going to be like, whoa, well, I mean, I just don't think that this would really apply to me. And I'm going to be like, oh, okay, gotcha. And so I'm guessing you probably have at least a few $1 million saved up to make sure that, all of this stuff that you have, like the house, the car, the this, or that, the funeral, that would all be covered. And they're like, well, no, I don't have a few $1 million saved up. Oh, okay, gotcha. But you at least have like a trust or something where the money wouldn't get stuck in probate. That way there's no way for anyone to contest that inheritance, right? And they're going to be like, a trust? What do you mean a trust? Now, the only way that you're ever going to end up in this conversation where you're not able to work your way in is if you're talking to someone who's really freaking smart and pretty rich. So if they're like, oh, no, we do have millions of dollars, I'm going to be like, okay, gotcha. So then you have a trust in place to, avoid probate and make sure that we're knocking that out of the park then, right? And if they don't, you can still get in, and now you have annuity opportunities. But we do have to ask these fact-finding questions, because if they think they don't need it, it's a perception of value, right? Is because they don't understand what the goodwill of it that actually comes is. And so then if they're saying, yeah, we don't need this, I'm going to first seek to understand. Second, I'm going to offer them information that's going to lead them to the conclusion that they are not able to operate without life insurance. And then I'm going to tie it all together with a story. I talked to somebody a few weeks ago that said the exact same thing. And it was pretty crazy, because literally on the next phone call, Miss Jones, when I was getting in touch with her, this guy, he was telling me about his wife and this and this happened. And then, then he died, and then, they weren't able to pay this. And then what happened was she lost the house. And I'm going to go through this story. don't lie about stories. Just either borrow one from an upline or use one that you have yourself if you're new. I mean, if you're not new. But don't ever lie about anything. Just keep it real and make sure it's legit. But I've got a couple other questions popping up. Literally just got off the phone with an age lady who was terrified to talk about final expense insurance because he had been denied. Okay. This one it doesn't happen super, super often, but it is something that I did hear a lot when I was in the field, door to door. And so what I would hear is I would hear that, I can't get, life insurance. I've been denied multiple times. And I would literally just be like, oh, okay, gotcha. So, I mean, unless you're, unless you got 2 feet in the grave, I think I should be able to get you covered. Now, I can't make any promises, but what we can do is we can, potentially look at any possible options that you might have and then just kind of go from there. Sound fair enough? And so then, you can really take the sales pressure off of the conversation by saying might, possibly, could, and you can expand from there into conversation. So yeah, I don't need this probably means like they don't feel about talking about this at the time. Sometimes they fear that they have to have the money that day. Yeah, some people are afraid of getting closed. This is very true. So it's pretty interesting that a lot of people will say that they don't need this. And so I always try to offer some level of conditioning or programming to the prospect by saying something along the lines of, it's, oh, okay, gotcha. I mean, everybody needs this, as if it's ludicrous for them to even imagine that they don't need it. And then I'm just going to reposition the question to be like, when you say you don't need this, what exactly do you mean by that? Right. And I'm going to offer that level of tonality there because I want to ensure that they understand that I have a curious tone because it seems unreasonable not to have it. And therefore they feel as if they're drugging the conversation. But it's not just about what you say. Part of it is how you say it. In fact, that's more important than not. But yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. The final expense lady, I don't know your name. So I saw your YouTube handle. So I figured I would just run with that. Doug says, I need a sales funnel for this huge upcoming event in the health insurance world. Hell yeah, man. Well, I guess if you have any questions, we're here to help. We don't really, do too much with health insurance, but if you have any questions, please ask. We are here to help. So what other objections are you guys struggling with? I want to make sure I can get through as many of these as possible before I hop off here today. And let me see if anybody else has filled out L. Formington. Lenny says, my tonality needs improvement for sure. Lenny, everyone's tonality needs improvement, 100%. You never have like peak tonality. That doesn't exist. There's no you never master it or perfect it. You can only ever get better. And if for the person that is doing sales that thinks that they're the best and that they've completely conquered everything and they can't take advice from anyone else, they're wrong and they've lost. Because if you're not constantly learning, you're either growing or contracting. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as peak perfection or anything like that. So, you're not alone in that, my friend. But let's see. I think we got somebody here named Courtney. Alrighty. And then I see another question. Had a guy that wanted to put $500 a month in a whole life policy, had way too many medical issues, so I suggested open under his son's name and him be the owner payee, closed and done. See, look, and this is another way, guys, this is another example of things that we have to be creative with this stuff sometimes, because a lot of people, they're not in a position to make a move for whatever reason. And so we have to be creative. Dude, I've got people that have had their kids pay for their freaking whole life insurance. And why? Well, it's a simple conversation. Oh, well, just because you're on a fixed income doesn't mean you don't need this stuff. What we can do is we can actually reach out to, who'd you say that was going to be covering again? My daughter. And what was her name? Michelle. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Let's reach out to Michelle real quick and see if she'd rather pay $20 a month or $20,000 down the road. What do you think makes more sense? And they're like, let's call her right now. But I'm going to call Courtney real quick and see what she's running into, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I love the creative stuff. Really, really good stuff.
Hello, this is Courtney.
Courtney, it's Julian. I saw you filled out our form. What's going on?
Hey there, how are you doing? I'm actually watching your training right now.
Oh, yeah?
Am I on live or something, or what's going on?
Yeah. So I was calling you to do the same thing I did with Akeem, where we kind of run over an objection real quick and see if we can't help you make a lot more money this year.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah. So what objection is what is the bane of your existence? Like the one objection that really hits you in the head?
It's funny because you actually touched on it, the last one with I have it through my employer. And I do exactly. I go, well, do you plan to work there for the rest of your life? Because, if you leave, you can't take it with you.
Exactly.
And so I go that way. The other one is, just we can't afford it. The company I work for kind of goes more towards permanent and policies, but I find much more value in term because it's more affordable for young families that need more insurance but can't afford it. But just trying to get them to, the pull a plug, just go for it and add it on. Because I get, we'll address it next year or we'll address it later. Let me think about it. So I guess my biggest concern is just trying to close and get people to see the value, and like, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is one of the biggest struggles. I do some coaching and stuff for people that are in our more like private programs. And this is the biggest issue that people run into, like global, I guess not globally, but I guess, industry wide. And it's people saying that they can't afford it and that, it's getting the close. And so I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your value building process. So whenever you're talking with people, do you feel like they actually can't afford it, or do you think it's a smokescreen?
I think that they don't know enough information about the value, and regardless of how I try to present it to them, and it's. I'm trying to think. I think that, Lord, I don't think that they can't afford it. That's not the issue at all.
How much are you charging?
Oh my gosh. It could, I try to go through kind of a, that value, to show them the value of like covering everything, their debt to income, mortgage, education, the whole dime thing. But, I think even for a young family, for a $500,000, $1 million term policy, they'd be looking at maybe like $80 a month and $100 a month. And it's not even that expensive. And if you kind of, look at the value that comes out of it, like, well, what happens? But I just don't know how to get people over that hump. Like that's, some people are ready to go and other people just really like, yeah, well, we'll think about it and let you know. And I'll follow up. But so I need to learn how to close a little bit better.
I had the same, literally like word for word, same conversation yesterday. The only difference was is he was selling final expense. And so the common misconception is that people can't close, but the close is actually the simplest thing in the sales process to facilitate. It's a simple, hey, did you want to go ahead and move forward? Or, hey, are you totally opposed to moving forward? Or it's just asking for the order. The closing process actually begins at the very beginning of the phone call when you start by fact finding and answering questions that need to go answered before that they can even present those objections. And so when I hop on the phone, are you a telesales agent or a face-to-face agent?
Well, I do both, but mainly face-to-face.
Okay. So when that's even better. If you're like, cause it's easier to it's easier to stick around with face-to-face, but it's easier to make more money doing telesales for scalability. And so, I always like if telesales, and this is something that I think is great for people to learn and like here on this live is like, if you are not good at telesales or haven't previously done it, start with face-to-face and then expand from there because it's easier to get reps in that way, doing it like with friends and family or maybe even a couple leads. But whenever you're in this sales process, I would focus a lot more on building value and simplifying using the KISS method, really simplifying the process of them understanding life insurance. And so I always use this example because it's what I used to do when I was in the home, and it's, whole life, are you familiar with the difference between term and whole life? And they'd say, yes or no. And I'd say, either way, I'm just going to give them a reminder. And I'd be like, okay. And Courtney, term life is kind of like milk, eggs, and cheese. It's great while it lasts, but it does end up expiring. And so when you look at,
by the time it expires, it's probably too expensive for them to purchase. So
exactly.
I'd rather focus on people getting term and then converting it to a permanent when they're more stable, financially stable.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's younger folks, it's like, just, and I know, like when I was 20, I'm like, I don't need health. I don't need life insurance. Like, what do I need that for? Because my parents have that on me. But it's, because we think we're invincible, but we're not. So I think it's just, we need to educate people more and figuring out how to do that myself is take on the world.
Yeah. Well, it's not. And the thing is too, is like with this product line, like the reason why younger people don't buy is because they don't see that it's a necessity. And so we have to find the value add when we're living versus when we're not. And so when I'm telling a young person, because my perceived likelihood of death is extremely low, and I'm in the insurance business and I believe that. So if you tried to sell me a term policy, I'm probably not even going to buy it unless you could show the value add. And so, for example, Mutual of Omaha has a 30-year return of premium policy. I would, if I am someone who has grown up in a similar generation, 10 years either way, at my age, I'm probably was told to save money, and that saving money was the key to success. And so then I will present the policy as a savings account that's going to come back to them in 30 years so that they literally have no downside risk. So it's like, oh yeah, so you get $500,000 in coverage and then you pay nothing by the end of 30 years because they give you all your money back. I think that just makes sense, right?
Right.
And then you just show it to them. But it's about really like explaining the concept of the company and really explaining the concept of the product and how it benefits them outside of just death benefit. Because like let's say I'm 22 and you're trying to tell me that I need to get $500,000 in life insurance coverage. And it's like, dude, are you like, I'm not going to die anytime soon. I'm working, I've got work coverage, like you're going to hear everything in the book. But, Blondie comments that you should find people at a life event like a birth of a baby or a marriage. And that's a great piece.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. Or what's your current target market? Do you have one?
Well, I mainly work with, because I do PNC as well. So I work with new home buyers. You know, it's like, hey, you just bought a house, you're having a couple kids. You know what happens. You know, so I go after that right now, because that seems to be my easy in. But I'm really I'm open to suggestions and where are you finding people that just had babies? If I don't have friends, because I'm 40 and a lot of my friends aren't having babies anymore.
No, I get it. Well, and you've got to find the interest point. So the interest, it doesn't necessarily need to be baby making people out here, but it's you got to find that person.
That's a really good one.
That's a great one. But if I had to base my business off of every time somebody popped a kid out, I'd be homeless. You know what I'm saying? So we've got to find a situation in which we can use what we already have to our advantage. And so, like, for example, if you talk to a guy, let's say that you're talking to people who they have kids, are planning to have kids, are married. Honestly, I'll be honest, single guys, young single guys and old single guys are the two hardest people to sell because they don't care.
I'm well aware of this one, and for a personal reason right now.
They're so hard to sell. And that's because they just don't care, because they're like, oh, well, I don't have anything to do.
Yeah, I don't have kids. I don't have any responsibilities.
But as a male, it is a inherent instinct for us to protect and provide for people, unless you're like a scumbag. But it's an inherent value to be like, you're the provider. That's been a core value of culture for so long. So it's like, it's kind of ingrained that you should provide for, and you can use moral high ground to tie that into your sales process. And so
I want to share something right now for the people that are listening as well. And I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. But I do PNC, I do life, and I have a 37-year-old brother that I've insured forever, but had no interest in life insurance. Single guy. He passed away a month ago. And do you know that how much like that would have helped, his surviving parents and sister and nieces and nephews? And that is a story I will take with me forever, because I argued with him for years about it. And he's like, I got it through. But he did it. He just said that because he didn't care. He didn't want it. He's like, I'm going to go hunting. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go to work. And there is, people don't take into account that, like, how something like that affects those that survive. And, we don't want to go to work. We don't want to function. We're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And so maybe presenting it to people like that, just, well, what about the rest of your family?
Exactly.
Parents, your friends and their family and their kids. Like, wouldn't you want somebody to, while they're grieving, to be taken care of? So just putting that out there, because I think that he created a story for me.
Yeah. And that's the best way to sell. What is it? Facts tell, stories sell. And if you are able to convey that message, because you can share that, I can't share that story with people and mean it the way that you do. And you can do that. And once I emphasize the value of the product, I explain to them and help them find that understanding of, hey, look, like, yes, you're young, but like in the event that something were to happen, what would that look like for your wife, for your kids? Exactly. Are they going to be able to pay for the house? Like, I'm going to dive deep. Are they going to be able to pay for the house?
If they don't have a wife or kids, what's it going to look like for the rest of the people in your family?
Parents, grandparents,
siblings, the parents,
adopted parents, anyone that they have an emotional tie to. And then the reason why the only time it's like really hard is like selling like orphans or old people that are like, they have nobody left and they never had kids. Like those are the two hardest sales in this industry.
That's very true.
But if you share that story and continue to do that with people and also explain to them the advantages of getting the product that you have, and also because like I'm more motivated to avoid losing something than I am to get a gain. So like, for example, I don't want to get burned. That would be a loss. But it doesn't mean that I'm like motivated to go out and like seek, like, I'm not going to wear a hazmat suit because I'm gaining protection. You see what I'm saying?
Of course.
And so I want to tie in more so the downside risk that they hold. And then you can tie it together with that story and be like, look, like, I don't know about you, but I mean, this sounds like it just makes sense. What do you think? And that's your close. That's your close right there. You can tie every single sale up just like that. And not only are you able to use that story for good, but you're able to save people from any heartache that anyone around you might have experienced from a situation like that.
Of course. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you for your time. Thank you for offering that story.
Are you kidding? I feel honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Courtney, I appreciate you having on here today. Everybody, let's drop a Courtney comment down below for sharing her story and giving us some things to learn. Courtney, we'll keep in touch. Thanks again.
All right.
Have a good one.
Have a good day.
Yeah, go get them. Peace.
Bye.
That was freaking awesome. Courtney's a stud. So let's see. I see some, it looks pretty heartfelt in the comments right now. I'm going to keep the mood high, but always emphasize the value of the product. Like Julian said, ask them open-ended questions so they can see how certain policies can benefit their current situation or future situation. And just so it's important, not let people talk themselves out of having something that, blah, blah, blah. So many good nuggets on here. Thank you. Of course, Blondie, we're seeing Courtney, hype up, sign up right now. Everybody's hyping up Courtney. So good stuff, Courtney. Thank you so much for coming on, guys. I want to leave you guys with one extra thing before I hop off here, because I do have to get on some calls and everything. But guys, facts tell, stories sell. Create an emotional state of buying by asking them that purpose-based questions that are directed towards what they are trying to protect. It can be house, it could be wife, it could be kids, it could be grandparents, everything that we talked about just with Courtney a second ago. And we can use that emotional buying state that we're creating there to transition and justify the purchase with logic by saying that, hey, this just makes sense based off what you're telling me. We want to label them. You're the type of person to protect your family. And, would you rather pay the small one, or have your wife and kids pay the big one? Right? Which one do you think makes more sense? And they're going to say, well, the small one, of course. And then that's our close right there. Okay, gotcha. Well, all we have to do is fill out an application, and we'll see if you even qualify. And that way we can make sure that we can avoid getting your wife or kids, or, your grandparents, your grandkids, or your, whatever, right? Whoever their beneficiary is, from having to pay that blank sized bill. And so I'm offering them value. I'm giving them their desired outcome. And the only barrier is whether or not they can actually apply or qualify for this product. And from there, it's a seamless transition into the application. And now all we have to do is understand how to fill out the application. But guys, if you don't know your carriers, if you don't know underwriting requirements, and if you don't know the benefits that each company provides in the target market that you're in and the demographic that you work with, it's going to be really hard to sell on value if you don't know what you're even providing. So if you're selling right now, and this is the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with before I hop off here. If you're selling right now and everything's about price, and everyone wants to talk about, oh, I can save you $3 a month, There's guys like me out there. There's guys like Akeem. There's guys like, Courtney, I guess there's girls like Courtney out there. And there's other people like you guys who are advanced agents that are going to come in and knock it out of the park by offering value and these employer-based plans that expire. And all of these people that are uninsured, which is half of America, by the way, are going to finally be able to get the coverage that they need and that they finally deserve, so that their families don't have to worry about some sketchy situation where they've got to lose the house, they've got to lose the car, they've got to do a payment plan, or they completely run out of money and they have no budget any longer for them to move forward and actually go on with their life, because it's okay to mourn, but it's not okay to be financially trapped for an extended period of time because of a decision that someone else made. So if your clients don't have insurance currently and you're getting off the phone and giving up on these objections, I urge you, please, to study this stuff, because we are heroes here in America that are saving people from tens of thousands, some even hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills. And so I'll give you one more story before I hop off here. But guys, my friend in high school's dad passed away, and his wife and the 3 kids that they had were living in a very high lifestyle because he was making millions of dollars a year. He got into a bad situation, ended up passing away, and ended up leaving a like $5 million term policy to the family. The wife had to pay off the house, pay off the cars, pay a couple of tax bills that were left unpaid, and also go through and buy groceries, go out and fund her new business that she was going to start to financially support her family, and continue to maintain some level of status with the lifestyle that they had built. And the only difference between that family, one of my good friends at the time, being homeless or actually creating the successful life that she has in real estate, being a multi-6-figure earner, was that life insurance policy. So it does help. It doesn't matter how old, young, skinny, fat, guy, girl, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. You do need insurance. And if we can get more lives insured in America, then we're going to be the heroes of the future. So thanks again, guys. Melissa says, hope to meet you at 8%. I hope to meet you too, Melissa. And then Jacob says one thing about anyone can give a quote, but it's about the client and to put something that fits their needs. You're exactly right. Life changes on a dime. That's the truth. Guys, thanks again so much for watching. Scott says he's going to miss these calls. We're going to miss you too, Scott, but I'm sure we'll do some stuff in the future. We just want to make sure that we can get all of the advanced agents to a complete and utter upper echelon. And then we can start investing in everyone here as much as humanly possible to get you guys to the next level. But let's knock this thing out of the park, guys. 6- and 7-figure earners are in this chat. Let's see who it's going to be. Keep posting your sales in the group so you can win that trip to Mexico. And we will talk soon. And you guys can still reach out to us in the group as well. We'll be there in the comments and everything, cheering you guys on in your business so that we can all go to the next level. So talk soon. Love you guys, and peace.